Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, it's time to have a look at another devblog for the next major update of War Thunder, and this is for the Imperial Japanese Navy. It is the Nenohi, which is a destroyer coming to Japan, but it is also a rank 2 premium vehicle. So this is very similar to some of the vehicles that we already have in the game, and generally should be pretty fine as a premium. I feel like when it comes to Japan, the destroyers are very much up and down when it comes to how effective they are. And the major issue with Japan is their starter cruisers. A lot of the 1920s and 30s vehicles can be very rough to get through until you get to the real nice big boomers. Stuff like the Nenohi could probably help you with that, but I still think there are probably better options. You know, the shimmy is always fun, and of course, hopefully they bring back stuff like the Udachi, which is a fantastic vehicle as well. Anyway, let's get into the history section of the Nenohi. After the London Naval Treaty went into effect, the size of the IJN's destroyer fleet became limited at just as much as the maximum displacement permitted for this type of vessel. Since previous Japanese destroyers, such as those of the Fubuki class, were exceeding these limitations, that meant that these vessels could no longer be built, thus prompting naval designers to develop a new class with similar performance characteristics but at a lower displacement. The result of this undertaking was the Hatsuharu class, whose design was inspired by the preceding Fubukis, but itself having a slightly less powerful main armament, as well as other weight-saving measures implemented in order to remain within treaty limitations. As the second ship built in the series, Nenohi was laid down in December of 1931 and launched exactly a year later. After fitting out, the ship joined the ranks of the IJN in late September 1933. Immediately after entering service, however, a number of issues were identified with the ship's design, specifically concerning its stability. Due to its weight-centered construction, the ship ended up being top-heavy, leading to a series of refits during its service career, all of which attempted to remedy this problem. During the Second World War, Nenohi initially took part in the invasion of the Dutch East Indies, before being assigned to assist in the Aleutians campaign in 1942. In July, the ship's service career came to an abrupt end, as Nenohi was torpedoed by the American submarine, the USS Triton, while escorting a seaplane tender. Sinking in mere minutes, the IJN Nenohi was stricken off the Naval Register shortly afterwards. So because we have the Hatsuharu in the game, everyone's going to draw comparisons from it to the Nenohi, which I think is completely fine. The Nenohi itself does have a few differences between it, though, and the Hatsuharu, the main one being where the turrets are situated. Basically, it still has 5 of the 127mm guns, and you have a 2 dual mounts, one on the front, one on the back, and then the single mount is mounted next to the back one on the stern in a slightly different configuration. It also only has 2 sets of triple-mounted torpedo launchers instead of 3, meaning that it is a little bit more limited when it comes to its torpedo armament. And since a lot of these destroyers, when it comes to Japan, especially in arcade, rely on these torpedoes to be effective and also being able to kind of squash areas, it kind of is annoying that is the fact that that's there. The other thing is, because they've moved this single mounted turret to where it's very close to the dual mounted one, it means that it's going to be harder for the turret to get onto target compared to the standard setup that we have. Also, the AA armament is weaker than the Hatsuharu's. Basically, it has 2 twin 25mm on this thing compared to the Hatsuharu's 40mm cannons. And I understand that, yes, you have double the technical weapons with 2 dual mounts of 25s instead of 2 single 40mm, but the 25s, at least in my experience, on these Japanese vehicles are useless. They have to wait until the plane gets incredibly close, and even then the actual damage that they do is not great. The vehicle itself doesn't exactly have a ton of armor either, but that's generally not why you play a vehicle like this. You play a vehicle like this so you can get to the outer edges of the map, launch a ton of really nice Japanese torpedoes, and then kind of move from there. The guns themselves, the 127s for Japan, have always treated me well. They aren't as powerful as some of the other ones that you have in the game, but because of the actual BR decompression that's gone on in naval, vehicles like this can actually shine, because they don't always just go against a barrage of American 5-inch guns all the time, which obviously have a higher fire rate and also a lot more amounts of ammo selection. These 127s usually only have access to HE or similar to that, so not a lot of penetration on them, but generally you can still cause a lot of damage with them, especially with the ever-changing damage mechanics when it comes to naval. For me, this will be a completely fine vehicle to buy for people. The only issue, I think, is that there are actually better options right now when it comes to the tech tree, so I don't know why you would pick this one up, especially since it seems to be weaker than the standard tech tree Hatsuharu in some different ways. So the real question is, does this beat out a bunch of the other premiums that's around the place? Will it have a different BR from the Hatsuharu? My guess is yes. But even if it doesn't, will it still be able to compete as well, especially in arcade with those torpedo changes? And also, are the guns going to be as good as they used to be when the destroyer DMs were a lot different and HE was a hell of a lot more powerful, meaning these 127s were pretty nice. Overall, it's lovely to see another machine. The Japanese Blue Water Fleet is not one I see a lot when it comes to the game, and I'm hoping that more people get into it because they do have some shining stars, such as the Yakizuki, obviously the Shimakaze, and some of the other destroyers with some beautiful torpedoes like the Yugamo. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Forge, Siegebreak, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, and also Sem Arslan, Wilkski, Uncle Bean, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.